Here we go. We're in it.
Hey! Oh! Hey! Oh!
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Corridor Cast.
We're here. We're talking.
Ren, do the intro today, Ren. Do
Yeah,
it.
do
Keep
the
doing
intro.
it.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Wait,
Come on,
my
get
voice
some more.
doesn't sound that high right now. Welcome back to the Corridor Cast.
It's Alvin.
Today we've got some special guests. We got Jake, we got Peter, Clint, and myself.
Hey guys. Good to be here.
Okay.
Wow. So there may be a reason why you know that Wren is using Helium, and that's because this is a special. This is a Corridor podcast special because we're going to talk about the Up video.
The Up video. Okay, is my voice back to normal? I can't really tell.
It's
What's
pretty
up,
much
video?
back to normal.
Back to
Pretty
normal.
much.
That's too bad. Let's fix that. Am I right?
So while
Ren, you have to go to this
Ren's,
full podcast inhaling
yeah.
helium.
No, I will die.
So
Will you
basically,
actually,
this. Oh my goodness.
Why don't you just suck it right out of the tank, dude?
Yeah, please
Well,
do
because
that.
I don't want to infect the tank with me.
It's already infected with you.
You're
Infect
right.
the tank.
Shush.
You just put your mouth on it, then put that back on there, though.
Yeah, I know. That's it. That's pretty much exactly what I'm doing.
Dude.
So no one else is allowed to use the helium anymore except for me. It's all mine. Mine forever.
You're a pro at sucking in that H,
Dude, I love to
You
suck
just
helium.
no hesitation.
Okay, the issue with helium, though, is that you have to take a lot of breaths between each helium suck. Otherwise, you will not get enough oxygen and you might pass out.
But you're used to that kind of stuff, so it's okay.
No, okay, before we get into anything, I want to talk about people's perception of how helium affects the body, because I have been called a helium addict more times in the last day, and I'm pretty sure any human being on the planet has ever been called a helium addict.
Yeah, I've been called a helium, like, not a helium addict, but
Helium
like,
junkie.
hey, you should slow down on the helium, man.
It's like helium during the day is like that's when you know you're pushing it a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I guess before
Yeah.
we get into that even, so
Helium, I'm a healing before bed kind of guy. You know?
today,
Yeah.
helium before bed. Let's see, today's Monday. The giant Up video that we put out came out yesterday. It has been a little over 24 hours, and the
Yeah.
video already has 1 million views.
Heck yeah. How's it feel, dude?
It feels great. That's a great success. That I'm very happy about that. Very pleased.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of work that I went to. Yeah, the helium's getting to me,
What
man.
is it? What is it for the people who don't know? What is it?
Yeah.
What is what?
The Up video. What's
Okay,
the Up video?
so the movie Up
Oh,
came out
okay.
in 2008. It features this house flying away on balloons, and it's a really cool image. Like the imagery of that movie, I think is very iconic. And I forget when I learned this, but I remember learning that like, all right, it wasn't actually real because to actually lift a house, you need so many more balloons. And I was like, man, that could be a cool scale video, but I tucked it away for like later. And then like last fall, Film Theory. The Film Theorist channel, they put out a video kind of detailing and analyzing how many balloons would be needed. And that was kind of like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then I got to thinking, but they didn't actually show anything. You know, they're all
Yeah.
about like the 2D illustrations and just kind of discussing the
maths.
the theory,
theory and the ideas.
thought,
Yeah.
the thought experiment of it.
I think that's the first question everyone asks, though, when they watch that movie, is they go, is that how many balloons it would really take?
Is it?
I know
Is that the first question?
That's the first question that I asked.
Or it's like,
Really?
is that
Yeah.
possible? Like, is that actually possible? You know?
And yeah, and fortunately, this is not a hard thing to calculate. It's just it's a simple like measuring scale type measuring. Did I say measuring?
Measuring. It's the helium.
Measuring.
Measuring.
Slow down on the
helium's
helium,
affecting me.
Shorthand.
For the record, no, the helium is not affecting me. That's not. I got people who got aggressive on my Instagram.
What?
One guy said, "I'm not going to shed a tear when you die from lung disease."
Whoa.
Because he's like you're setting the wrong example for your young audience, as if he's assuming the age range of my personal audience.
Is he pissed
what
at
the
Logan
heck?
Paul as well for
don't
setting
know,
a
I
poor
don't know.
example? Or is it
But
just-
here's the thing: there are a lot of people who are like, "Hey, man, you should maybe like cut back on the helium. It's bad for you." And the true answer is that it's not bad for you. Helium is a noble gas. It's inert.
I don't know what that means.
It means it doesn't react with anything.
Oh, so
So?
it doesn't go like inside of you.
The danger. So
tiny
there is.
atomic
It's not to say
explosion.
that there is no danger with sucking up helium. The danger comes from the fact that it displaces oxygen, and oxygen is what your body needs to live.
Right.
It's what your brain needs. It's basically every time you take a big breath of helium, it's the equivalent of holding your breath. It's
so
like
if you have too much of it too soon, you could pass out.
yes, and
Interesting.
I have done that before. So
When's the last time that happened?
college.
Okay.
This would have been
Wren, I find this hard to believe. You've passed out from ingesting too much helium? That
Look at
seems
those
like
parties,
some...
dude. They get the keg of
No,
helium.
no,
It's a great
so-
time.
Helium keg.
helium keg. No, a friend of
Helium
mine
keg
made
stand, you start floating up.
Helium.
Yeah.
He for his senior design project in engineering, he designed a blimp from scratch.
Did you
and
suck up the whole thing? Sorry.
We did. Yeah, no, because like we put all the helium in the balloon, and then it's like, well, we did the experiment. We filmed our little video for it. Now it's just we're gonna open it up and release it into the atmosphere. No, we're gonna freaking suck it. So we did. And I made a little video about it. Basically, my friend and my other friend kind of were just explaining how the blimp worked to each other, but the entire thing is just entirely them on helium.
Oh my god.
And it's just like never really addressed.
That's great.
But yeah, no,
would
then
it
I
be-
started trying, and I started breathing in. I'd take a big breath, start talking, take
Yeah.
another big breath, start talking.
And
And
that
then on my
first-
third breath, I was like, and I started talking, and then next thing I know, I'm on the ground.
Oh my god.
I'm like, hey.
oh no! Wren just bonked his head.
Just bonked my head on
Dude,
helium.
suck some helium for that, dude. Get
Yeah.
some helium for that.
Hey,
No,
what-
And so like I just momentarily passed out because like my brain wasn't getting enough oxygen, so you start to black out. Fortunately, the cure to that is just to keep breathing, which your body does naturally when you pass out. So it's like it's incredibly difficult to actually harm yourself from helium. Like passing out like that's not that bad for you. No worse than, bad night of drinking.
Yeah, I guess so.
I feel like a bad night drink would be way worse.
That's what I'm
Probably.
saying. Significantly worse. A little bit of helium, and yeah, so that's like the only like danger involved with helium, and it's not even that bad of a danger. So as far as the actual exposure to helium, it's because in the two videos leading up to that, yesterday's video, I had like a line of helium. So now everyone thinks I'm a friggin'
line
helium
of
addict.
helium.
Hey, would it be as safe if you used hydrogen instead?
I don't know. Hydrogen, I would never.
Oh my
Inhale.
god, dude.
I would just hold a lighter next to your mouth.
Yeah, dude. No, you don't mess around with hydrogen. Hydrogen is like legit scary.
Because it's super flammable,
It's
right?
it's incredibly flammable. It's
like, you don't know what's
incredibly
going on in your body.
reactive. It's
If
it's
you
on
if
the
you
other
if you
end of
breathed
the
in a bunch of
periodic table.
hydrogen and then like lit a flame, could you like spit fire, or would it go into your lungs and
It would
burn
go
you
into your
alive?
lungs and your chest would explode.
Ugh.
I
Oh.
don't know that for a fact. That is my guess. That is my
Hey,
hypothesis.
I mean, well, it does explode. I have a friend who
Yeah.
their family on New Year's would send up hydrogen weather balloons and shoot them with flaming arrows.
that is awesome.
Oh my
See, that is cool. Like you
Yeah.
can totally do that. Like I've heard of people like filling up hydrogen balloons and it's like, hey, watch this, and you explode it. My dad told me about a story. His college physics class. They would have two balloons. One was helium, one was hydrogen, and he would take a lighter on a stick to the helium balloon, and it would pop. And it's like everyone's like, wow, balloon go pop, cool. And then he did the same thing to the hydrogen balloon, and like everyone's ears were ringing after that because it was
Oh my
a
God.
fireball. It was very loud, very
Jeez.
explosive.
That's sick.
Hydrogen
dude.
does not mess around.
Wow.
It's like,
is there any way to make it not flammable,
hydrogen.
or would you have to change its chemical compound?
You would
to
have
do
to
that?
you'd have to create a compound by merging it with something else. Like,
Okay.
I mean, like H2 is how hydrogen exists in the atmosphere, and if you combine that with oxygen, one of the only other things it really combines with naturally, I think chemists don't.
Then you get
I don't want
water,
to. Don't at me.
Obviously.
And that makes water.
How does two gases make a water? That's crazy.
I know, right?
Chemistry, son.
Crazy.
We're,
dude.
we're not here to solve chemistry's most complex questions,
Yeah.
Clint.
It's
No,
an
I'm-
interesting
I-
one, you know. But you're right. Go ahead, Jake.
I'm just kidding. I was just trying to razz you a little bit.
No, we're here to
um,
talk about some up video, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I
Well,
I don't know, man. I
kinds
don't
of-
know. We can talk about whatever we want here. This is the,
Okay.
This is
I
the
just
core-
have a
wanted to get
question
that
for Wren.
helium stuff off my chest because I have been getting more comments about how I should stop being a danger to myself in the last day than all the times I've actually legitimately been a danger to myself.
Can you please?
come on.
Can you please hit that helium tank right now?
From the teat.
From the please.
You want me?
hit
Okay,
it,
fine.
hit it from the
No,
source.
no, Ren.
Hit it-
Exhale
hit it
completely.
from-
Exhale completely, and then inhale completely.
Hit it from the source.
Oh, Jesus.
Here it goes.
Like
So here's
Mama
the
Cow.
thing about talking on helium. If I just go, okay, no, that was not good. I am very lightheaded right now. Okay, so I'm just gonna continue talking until I do not have any. I'm already starting to see spots in my vision.
Talk about
This
the
is not
video.
good.
Talk about the video. How was the
The
buzzer?
video's great. We got it. Hold on. Put a lot of late nights on it. Okay, I'm getting lightheaded now. Now we're entering actual legit danger territory, but I've got supervision here, and it's okay. My voice is back to normal. Hey, look at that. No more spots. We're going to talk about our sponsor today, Storyblocks, because I actually used it a ton in the up video, so I kind of just want to talk about that real quick. They've got unlimited downloads. They've got like a million options to choose from, and their subscription plans are really affordable. See, here's the thing. For this up video, I filmed a lot, but at the same time, I'm not going to be able to go to all these different places that I would love to be able to go to be able to film for this video, and that's where Storyblocks comes in. The entire segment where I'm talking about mining helium, that's all stock footage. They have so much 4K footage now too. Quality. Also, they have After Effects templates. You can literally just browse for like, what's a cool little transition or type of effect that I can do without having to put any effort or work into it. You can download it and make your little alterations you need. Doing it this way with unlimited downloads opens up the freedom to create more effectively. Check it out, link in the description if you're interested. It helps us out, it might help you out. Storyblocks.com/quartercast or the link in the description, like I said. But for now, let's get back to chatting about Up. Are you down for that? I'm down for Up.
Wow.
I'm gonna do it again.
Oh my
No,
God.
no, don't
Sucking
do
on
it again.
Mama's teat.
Don't, Red.
Like a baby
What?
calf.
What are you talking about? There's
Don't
nothing
do it
wrong.
again. I don't
okay.
actually want you to pass out.
This is the most danger I've put myself in regarding this helium tank through this entire year so far, and you guys are witnessing it in real time. This is the most danger I've
Ren, do you
myself
ever
through.
do you ever go home and like and you show up and Jenna's there and you're like, I just want you to know how dangerous I was today.
He shows up with a leather jacket. He leaves his
He's got
house
a
like Ren, but then
with a
he
helium
comes back.
tank strapped to the back of it.
Yeah, no, I've done permutations of that. Where I kind of like I tell her I come home and I'm like, "Hey babe, I did this today." And she
drank
just like
coin
looks at me
juice?
and then looks away and she's like, "Of course you did." She's like not surprised by any stunts I pull anymore.
Oh my goodness.
Dude, there was an.
You think you guys see a lot of stunts that I pull. How do you think she deals with life? She sees a lot more.
me and Kim were watching Avatar: The Last Airbender last night, and there was an episode where they were stuck in the desert, and Sokka like ate this cactus, and he started eating the cactus juice, and he got super high. What? And like for a whole episode, he was like all wigged out, and then as soon as he like gets back to normal, like they're in a cave, and he just looks and he sees this like goop on the side of the wall, and he just eats it. He just licks it, and I'm like, that's Wren. Like.
That character is very similar to Wren. weirdly.
Yeah. I was like, that's straight up Wren. He'll eat anything.
Dude, I got a text from my college roommate, good friend of mine, but I hadn't talked to him in years. And I get a text from him out of the blue saying that he'd been catching up on Corridor Crew videos. This is like a year or two ago, right? And he's like, Wren, you put more stuff in your mouth than my 2-year-old son.
Oh man.
And I was like, damn straight.
Where does this come from? This
It's, I mean,
comfortableness with putting things in your mouth.
it's it's to get a reaction. I'm very much so an attention seeker. It's like it's in my DNA of just like trying to get reactions out of people.
It's the camera. Like Wren, dude.
It's not just the camera. It's anyone. It's like if I know someone's watching, I'm automatically in like performance mode, and it's subtle. But it's there.
Like when you ride your one wheel and you crash, and then you see a crowd, you always do like the little bow.
I do, yeah. Well, it's because that's just how I deal with embarrassment more than anything.
Yeah.
Like if I like freaking biff it in front of people, like what are you gonna do? Like get up and walk away? It's like that's so embarrassing. But if you embrace it and you stand up and you're like, I do a curtsy.
Yes.
You're like, yeah.
That's great.
Like I'm aware that you're aware that I've just embarrassed myself.
And I'm just gonna do a curtsy because that's even more embarrassing, and you'll remember that.
That's
You
great.
remember that and not the fall.
I don't know.
What's the worst thing you've eaten? Sorry, just last before we move on. Like, coin juice was pretty bad.
Coin juice. Oh, okay, and to be clear, I don't eat any of those things. I chew them and spit them out.
What was the worst
Like
thing?
I don't swallow or ingest.
How exactly do you chew coin juice?
No, I sipped it, and then you can see in the video, I immediately spit it all out.
That's true, you do.
It tasted like freaking salty blood water.
Ew.
Ah.
Aren't you worried about getting an infection or something?
Not an infection.
That's
the
because
infection
it's-
implies
it's
like
i-
some
it's-
sort of like
that's the
biotic.
iron. Is that
Yeah,
that
yeah, it was
flavor.
totally the iron and the iodine. Not the iodine, whatever the freaking sodium chloride stuff was in that.
Did you
'Cause
drink,
it's just it's a metallurgy type thing. It's ions breaking off from the coin and attaching to the fork that he had in there, and it's just like the transfer. So that solution kind of becomes more whatever. I don't know the details, but it's just really salty water that had a metallic taste to it.
That's gross.
It was awful. I mean,
We had a banana
eating
peel.
a tree leaf was bad. That's just gross. It's just bitter, and it's
Wait,
just like
I was there for that. I looked at you and I was like, I dare you to eat that tree leaf or something like that, and you just ate it. And you're like, that was horrible.
How about a banana
Oh
peel?
my god! Wait, no, that's right. When was that? Because that didn't make it into the video.
Yeah, I don't remember, but we were in a park filming something, and like you ate it. I looked at you from like super far away, and I was like, get this tree leaf, and like you didn't have to say anything. Like you just ate it.
I don't remember when that was, because I think we also did that when we were rescuing the drone out of the tree last
Okay,
year.
yeah.
But you weren't there for that.
No.
I remember, like, I think Wes handed me something. I was like, God, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't offer it to me because I'll have to eat it. I have to do it.
I thought that was a tree leaf. I guess maybe it was something else.
We had a banana peel too, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's the whole running gag in the Guillotine channel. Every time you guys chopped fruit, I just ate it, skin and all, like the pineapple.
Yeah.
Honestly, the pineapple skin was the best compared to cantaloupe and banana.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. If
Maybe
I
because
brought a
it's-
bag of broccoli to work and I was like, hey, Wren, eat this. Like every hour, would you just eat a piece of broccoli? You get so healthy.
I like broccoli.
Okay, cool.
Like low key, just trying to help him out.
I mean, I like it better when it's been like roasted, but like,
No, it's going to be frozen.
no, I mean,
broccoli pop.
Dude, I was just trying to help you out. I just thought maybe you wanted some. All right, let's talk about this video though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, Wren, the people want to know. I mean, how long did it take to make it? Where did the idea come from? You kind of already answered that. What were
Okay, so
what were the
ironically-
post-production challenges you faced? All that stuff.
yeah, so I mean, like, I came up with the idea a while ago, and I noted it down like more than 2 years ago, and it was last fall shooting or writing my script for functional filmmaking, and I had an example where I talk about, or rather, part of my episode is talking about. I mean, most of my episode is talking about ideas, but I basically say you gotta like write down ideas, and then I pull out my phone, and as I'm like scrolling through, I'm like, how many balloons would it take to lift a house? And I'm like, that's actually a really good idea. I should do that. and then like I did. But here's the thing: that functional filmmaking episode isn't out yet. And
Yeah.
And so in that video, I'm going to be talking about like, oh, I should do this, and then like, but that video that I'm talking about I should do is already ancient history at this
I
point.
mean, it just shows how on it you are, you know?
I suppose.
Do you guys, Clint and Peter, do you guys do that? Does that like, do you write down ideas on your phone or
Oh, yeah.
like on,
Yeah,
a,
I
on
have
a
like
consistent
hundreds
doc?
of just nonsensical notes on my phone. I'm like, what was I even talking about when I wrote this down?
Yeah. Yeah.
Notes doc, Google Doc, anything to get an idea as quick as possible. Trello.
Yeah.
You got me hooked on that
Yeah.
Trello.
Oh, you got ideas on Trello?
Yeah, I got a whole idea board. It's
What
like a
is
whole
Trello?
one. It's just like a management like
cool.
thing. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Clint's got them
anything.
Trello ideas, son.
Yeah.
Ryan, I have a
son.
question for you. So you have all of these ideas for different videos,
Yeah.
like the science videos. What is your process for like weeding out the good ones and finally selecting one to work
You know,
on?
that's a good question. Maybe you should subscribe to corridordigital.com to see my functional filmmaking episode.
got him.
Oh, I don't want to give anything
Got him.
No,
away.
no, no. I only briefly touch on that, but because that is actually a more specific question than what I cover in the episode. Let's see. It comes down to like how well would this. How do I weed out all like the good ideas from the bad ideas, right? And it comes down to how much can I riff on this idea between different topics, and how would that look on camera? Because there have been some ideas that like it's a good idea. I would love to see the scale of, this thing compared to something else, but it's like, that's the extent of the idea.
Right.
And it's like, that is kind of just it. It's like
So
just this
how
one thing. It's like, it would make a great 30-second video.
So how naturally the idea like can be expressed or
Different avenues. You can go down different avenues and
Yeah,
get to your
like
final point.
the interest that another person would have in that.
Well, it's more so like
expression.
the subtopics within it. So like, the scale of the universe, the scale of atoms, those two videos, there's like multiple different things within that video that I can talk about.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that like I'm able to just walk down the list of scale, like starting with atoms. I could talk about like, atoms moving up to molecules, red blood cells, salt crystals, pennies, and then going down to mega tiny with like, neutrinos and the Planck length and stuff like that. Stars, a few different stars, Star Wars ships, a few different ships.
Yeah.
And so when I don't have all those different things, it can kind of be a struggle to write. Like the how much water is on Earth video was a struggle to write because it's like, it's this much.
Yeah.
How do I make a video out of that? It's like, okay, so then it's like I'm trying to come up with like different ideas that I can extrapolate from. And this up video was kind of that. Where it's like, okay, I mean, like, what would it look like? I could easily just be like, all right, it's this many balloons and it would look like this. But the video ended up kind of turning into more of a thing talking about buoyancy in general and balloons in general. That's why I talk about helium. That's why I talk about hydrogen. That's why I talk about vacuum. I really wish I could have added a little bit of segment talking about hot air balloons, because hot air balloons are lighter than air, kind of like helium.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It ended up not really fitting in the video because hot air is lighter than regular air because hot air expands, so it's less dense, and
That's how birds can go up, right?
Yeah,
They ride the-
yeah,
what is
because
it
you're
called?
riding. Yeah, birds ride a thermal, and a thermal is just hotter air, and because it's hotter, it's rising up, and birds get into that pocket of air. It's like it's like getting on an elevator.
Yeah.
Like
That's
those
wild.
elevators that never stop, and you just like you hook yourself on and you just go. Those aren't real elevators, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Dude,
How do
hot
I-
air
I mean-
balloons, you can't freaking steer them. That's nuts. Once you
Yeah.
go up, it's like, how do you know you're going to get down?
You can control your elevation pretty easily.
Yeah.
You can control your rate of descent and rate of ascension, but
Yeah,
you
sounds
can't
scary.
control your direction. So it's like if you know you're about to hit something, you just go up and over it and find a good landing spot on the other side.
Wild.
Yeah, you have more control than you initially think. But you're right. You are still riding on the wind.
Wild.
Riding on the wind, boys. We're all riding on the wind.
But yeah, like another video I want to do is talking about like the scale of data usage, and I haven't even started writing this at all.
dude,
or
that's
really
such a
even
cool
researching
idea.
too much. I've done a little bit of preliminary research, but like
By the time from the time you work on that video to the time it releases, that the scale of data will change.
Dude, that's a good point. That's actually a really cool point. Like, you could say from the time I started working on this video, and then also from the time you started listening to this video, this is how much data has been added to everything.
That's
like,
a great idea.
That's crazy.
that's a solid idea.
'Cause
Like
that puts it in perspective.
at this point in the video, but then I'm gonna like lock myself into making sure that moment in the video is right at that second.
Yeah, but you can figure it out. Like you
Yeah.
guesstimate it, but that's a really cool idea.
But yeah, and just kind of going through and like, okay, starting with like floppy disk drives, how much, if you were to put all of the world's data on floppy disk drives, what would that look like? It'd be like a giant pile of floppy disks.
And just like just today, YouTube has, this much
you
data
always
has
see
been.
that metric of like YouTube uploads 493 trillion years worth of video
Wow.
every second, and obviously that's an exaggeration. 'Cause I don't know the real number.
943 trillion years a second.
Hey man, there's a lot of
Don't
uploading.
think it's that high. Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's all really cool stuff to play with.
but yeah, I don't know. I feel like if I hear it's more about the idea behind the visual than just the visual itself. Because I'm constantly getting messages like, oh, you should compare these things, and it's like they're shallow, and that's what it comes down to. Is like I'm measuring the depth in my head of what can I do with this idea, where can I go with it, where can I explore?
Does it got legs?
Yeah,
Yeah, because, well, I mean, if you visualize something and it doesn't have any relation to the viewer in any way, like if the viewer can't look at it and go, that's interesting, not just because of the image, but also because of the image teaches me this. you know, that
Mm-hmm.
that underlying thing.
Yeah, and it's like I've definitely kind of like tried to figure out how far into because these videos are definitely in the category of edutainment, where it's a combination of education and entertainment, and I'm constantly kind of shifting back and forth between like being a little bit more educational, being a little bit more entertainment. I think this up video slightly leaned more towards entertainment than education, because I kind of like completely glossed over any of the actual like math that was done,
Right.
and like because people kept asking like, did you include the weight of the strings? And I'm like, did you watch the video? I literally wrote out I included the weight of the strings, but it was on the screen for like 1 second. I don't blame him. But I did technically, kind of. It's like okay, I think the real calculation came out to around 75,000 balloons, weather balloons, but that was not taking into account the weight of any string or mounting framework. Because realistically, it probably wouldn't be string. It'd probably be some sort of buttress that goes up and out for all the balloons to attach to. And it's like, all right, now that's starting to get too far into the weeds of trying to figure out, like realistically figure out this totally hypothetical thing. It's like, okay, whatever. So I was like, okay, I rounded it up to 80,000 balloons and worked backwards. How much weight extra would that be? And it came out to like 43,000 pounds of extra weight. And I'm like, that's enough string. that's enough.
Oh my god.
Sure, let's make it 80,000 pounds, and I'm just gonna say that I did. There's a lot of oversimplification here. It's like I did all the back work on the math and all that stuff, but like this video's you're here to watch some balloons lift a house. Like you're not here to learn about like the specific equations I used.
Did your calculations come out to be similar to that other video that came out a while ago that you referenced for this?
Oh, the film theory video.
Yeah.
I mean, kind
That's
of.
a good question.
I think it should probably be fewer balloons than they came out to, but here's the thing. I decided to just use their number rather than use whatever I did, because it's like, all right, they already have a pretty good video kind of diving into the analysis, because what it comes down to is how much does this house weigh? And
Right.
I could use the average weight of a house and figure it out for that, but honestly, the main reason why I decided to go with their number is because it was bigger.
Hey, so why does a Queen Anne house weigh so much more than a regular house?
So a Queen Anne style house is a much older style house, and traditionally older houses use denser materials. They're heavier in general. They've got a whole lot of like extra wood, and like we're talking like high quality dense wood that's very heavy. And all like the extra like parapets and like shale or not shale, the tiles.
Yeah, and the
all
craftsman
that stuff.
style
It's like,
tiles.
Houses have gotten
Yeah.
more efficient over time, and that means they're using lighter materials, cheaper materials that tend to be lighter as a byproduct.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I can figure this out, and using 120,000 pounds as the weight of the house, but it would have this many balloons, and I was like, I mean, I could do that, or I can make it what they said, which was 570,000 pounds for this house, and that would require this many balloons. There's no upper limit on how many balloons we can put on this house. Might as well make the more impressive visual.
Right.
And there's
Yeah.
precedent behind the number. It's not like I'm just arbitrarily making it a bigger house. I'm choosing the bigger option because someone else has already been like, you know what? I am making a stand that this is how much the house weighs. Here's my reasoning behind it. I'm basically just being like, I like the reasoning. I'm choosing their numbers. Don't at me.
Cool.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, did that calculation include the basement and the strings though?
No,
'Cause-
it included the strings, but it did not include the basement because
Okay.
it lifts away from the foundation.
But the
Okay.
fine china in the house. That's
Yeah,
the
I don't
level.
know. They basically based it off of this one company that estimated the weight per square foot of that style of house to be around 275-ish pounds per square foot.
Well, hold on. To put it
200
into
pounds per
perspective,
square
though,
foot? 200 pounds for this?
Yeah.
Wow.
to put it into perspective, you said that weighs more than the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
It was really hard for me to believe that.
Is the Statue of Liberty made of like paper mache?
No, it's made out
that-
of copper.
Copper?
Yeah.
And it's heavier than that?
Yeah.
That's why it turned green, right?
It is why it turned green, yeah. But also don't forget the Statue of Liberty is hollow.
Yeah.
It's just a thin sheet of metal on the outside that's been like hammered into shape.
Yeah.
And that is the bulk of the weight of the statue. But then you have all of the metal framework inside of the statue kind of helping it keep its shape.
Yeah.
And that's steel and,
The stairs and
iron and
stuff.
stuff like that. The stairs, and that's an additional weight, but it's not as much as the statue as a whole. And it's very important to note, we are not including the weight of the concrete foundation.
Okay.
That weighs like 50,000 tons.
Yeah, that'd be a lot.
Or no, 50 million tons.
Oh my goodness.
Something astronomically heavy, because it's like a giant island's worth of concrete. Whereas the statue itself, that was also to scale. That shot with the house and the
Oh, wow.
windmill and the statue, like that is to scale. The Statue of Liberty is not that big. It's 150 feet tall.
Right, yeah.
But the foundation puts it up to 300 feet tall. So it's like
Crazy.
half his statue, half his foundation.
Wow.
Did you include the empty space inside of the house when you got the weight of it?
No, that's a good question.
So that number that I mentioned is an average for that style of house. So it's like, it's not like they're saying if you're just to cut out a square foot of the house that's going to weigh 200 pounds. It's like, all right,
Right, but if they're like, hey, it's a 2,000 square foot house at 275 pounds per square foot, right?
Like the volume of it, you mean? Like the volume? Did you include the volume in that?
no,
Is that what you're
because
saying?
it's not airtight. So the volume inside of the house doesn't count.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
You're just counting like
yeah,
the,
I mean, like the doors, the windows, they're not sealed. They're, he opens them all the time, and that air equalizes out to the outside.
yeah.
If he was to seal everything down, then you would have to take into account the weight of the air.
Yeah.
But
Dang,
because
that's
you're
next
not,
level.
it's not a factor.
Wow.
But yeah, so let's talk about some visual effects.
Oh boy.
Hell yeah.
So one of the first shots I envisioned for this video was basically, because I moved into a new house at the beginning of this year, and I noticed the porch kind of has the same sort of like form factor as the porch of the house from up, except backwards. So I was like, what if I start talking while I'm like inside my house and I walk outside as the camera pulls backwards to reveal I'm standing on the porch of the house flying over the sky. So Daniel and I went over to my house. We filmed it. And then Clint took it away.
You gave me a shot. Yeah, you gave me that freaking intro shot. Yeah, you're like, I start at my front door and I walk out and then everything is CG around me. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's see if I can figure this out. So that, starts with a camera track. So I used the C4D camera tracker and just tracked it up nice, lined up my camera, made sure the scale was right. So a default person in the program was the size of Wren. And I was like, okay, perfect. I was like, Wren, how much do
How
tall are you?
tall?
How much are you tall? And I just lined that up to like the person, And then luckily there was like a model I downloaded somewhere.
Yeah.
And I retextured it completely. And
You had to like optimize it pretty heavily.
yeah. Because it wasn't textured, I don't think, when I got it. So I had to retexture it. And then I had to line that up to Wren's body. And God, what did I do after that?
Well, I mean, there's a few interesting things you did with this shot. But I mean, first off, even before I wrote the script, like as I'm still like trying to begin writing it, you had the entire house ready to go, including the balloons. Because I had done the math and figured out how many balloons would be needed.
That was the thing too. Yeah, it was like, can you spawn like, it was 200,000 balloons I had at one point.
Jeez.
To like fill it all up and make it look freaking huge and massive. And that was gonna be a problem for me. That was like, oh crap, I don't know if I can do this. So I had to just figure out a way to like, clone one item and make a copy of it, but have that copy not be more geometry. It was actually referencing the original one. So every single one of those balloons were just referencing one other balloon.
That's called an instance.
An instance, yeah.
Oh.
So there was technically 6 balloons because there were 6 colors. And it was instancing all 6 of those to make however many 100,000.
Yeah.
And then gave them some like modifiers so they're kind of like moving. It's not dynamically generated, meaning like when you do like a physics simulation, it's taking into account all the different polygons and doing the math between this and that and this. Like it's crazy. It'd break my computer. There'd be no chance. So I had to just do what's called like Mograph effects in Cinema 4D, which is motion graphics. And you're just taking these points and you're just saying randomly move them around a little bit. And that's kind of it was like the cheat way to get the balloons to like look like they're moving around and stuff.
Yeah.
But you ended up having the collection of balloons that you see is technically hollow, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like,
Oh, really?
I mean, because there's no reason to render all the balloons inside of the whole
I
thing.
didn't notice.
And so, yeah, it's like you ended up like figuring out the approximate volume of the whole thing and then like just getting rid of all the balloons inside. So you still have all like the cloner objects around the it still
Yeah.
looks solid from the outside.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like at the end of the day, it basically was like a thick shell, and then you fill that thick shell with balloons, and then that number is like, 30, 40,000, whatever.
Totally,
And
yeah.
The inside.
And you can kind of see it in the video. Like you can kind of see little like pinpricks of light moving
you can
through the balloon, and what you're seeing is literally you're seeing through the outer shell and then through the back shell or the back face of the shell to the original footage in the sky.
Totally.
And whatnot. And so as we're like, the camera's moving around the balloons, the cluster, you can kind of like make out, like, especially if you know what you're looking for, you can totally see that technically the balloon shell is hollow.
Yeah.
Which was
I was
kind
like,
of,
oh,
it's
go ahead,
kind
dude.
of like the Statue of Liberty, but a balloon lifting
Yeah, exactly.
thing.
But
Exactly.
those are the shortcuts we take to achieve these sort of effects, because it's like, the approximate volume was correct.
Yeah.
The the scale of all the stuff was set correctly. How we get it done doesn't particularly matter. And that goes to what Sam did for all the X particles stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess to talk about that, there's a shot in the video where I talk about what would it look like if you actually rendered 31 million balloons in the city, and then it's like this whole epic montage of shots that Sam kicked out. And it's a really fun story behind that, because it's like initially I wasn't gonna have that at all, like at all.
Oh my goodness.
That was not in the original plan for this video, but I went to Sam, and because I was like, it would have been cool to have it, but I didn't know how realistic it would be to actually achieve, and I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So I was like, Sam, because Sam's our resident X Particles like pro, and I was like, hey, is it possible to like simulate 30 million like spheres going around geometry? And he was like, yeah.
So accurate.
So then he just spent a week just kind of experimenting and simulating and trying a few different things. And he has some like pretty cool looking like test renders, but he was slowly working his way up. He started off with like 1 million balloons and went up to like 5 million, but then it started crunching his computer. He couldn't simulate more than that. So what he ended up doing was, I think he ended up simulating, I want to say somewhere between like 3 and 5 million particles floating through a city. We downloaded a CG model of downtown Los Angeles and used the geometry of that as like an interfacing thing for the particles. And what he did was each particle he replaced with a cluster of balloons, a cluster of 8 balloons specifically. So
Clever.
every balloon that you see is actually a cluster of a few different balloons and colors. So you're actually seeing a bunch of different little like clusters flying through the city. And that was just a way to kind of like get it up to that 30 million mark while only having to simulate, a quarter of that or an eighth of that.
It's all about the cheats.
Yeah, exactly. And so then he came to me and was like, can't do interactions.
Oh,
I was like,
man.
what? Because some of the early tests, like we have the balloons like hitting the buildings and going up and over them.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And the biggest downside to the final shots, in my opinion, if you're looking, they phase straight through the buildings.
Really?
Oh man.
Like
I
go
didn't
back and take a
notice.
look and look at the balloons. They are coming through the buildings.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
So Sam's computer just couldn't handle.
It was I forget the specific reasoning, but it's like it's just not going to work. It's crashing, it's freezing, he had one simulation that was like it was going to take like a week to simulate,
God.
and every frame was like multiple gigabytes, and he had to simulate 7,000.
Oh my.
Because they're all generated in one spot, and he has to wait for them to like flow through the city, and it takes several thousand frames for it to get
7 terabytes
Oh my God.
to
It was
create
gonna
a
be
single
something-
shot.
something super huge like that. It was ridiculous.
Oh, because you have to pre-bake it. You have to like. You have
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
Right.
you want this render of all these balloons in the city. Well, you got to simulate the balloons to get to that point. You don't just hit randomly generate and suddenly balloons are everywhere.
Yeah, it
no,
starts
but
from
like
an
when I'm talking
emitter.
about like the wind currents, like he literally had to simulate all the balloons riding the wind until they got to the city
Oh,
and are all
Jesus.
dispersed around. And then we took that slice,
Yeah.
and that was what was in the video.
Yeah.
It was like a
boy.
lot of work to get it to that point. So I told
Yeah.
Sam, I was like, listen, I currently have like a bare mention of this. If you can get me like one shot, that'd be great. But if you get more shots, I mean, I will fill up this time with however much I need to say to fit all of the renders you give me. So it's like
Yeah.
basically give me whatever you can, and I will try to my best to use everything. And so he just kept kicking out renders. He's like, oh yeah, I rendered out some more last night. I was like, oh, and next thing I know, he's rendered out like 7 or 8 shots.
And they all look so sick.
Yeah,
too.
they're super sick. And I was like, I guess I have to write an entire new section for this video. So I did, and I'm glad I did because it was pretty sweet.
I couldn't believe that there was that live footage that you found.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Balloon Fest 1986.
Whose idea was that? Who's the genius behind Balloon Fest 86?
Where did they think those
I mean, I wouldn't really
balloons were
say
going to
they're a
go?
genius because 2 people died.
No, I know. I was
They died from
kidding.
drowning,
I'm
right?
kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. I have multiple questions.
I see what you mean now.
First question: was there a Balloon Fest 87?
No,
Was there a Balloon? Was there
That's
a
all
Balloon
you need
Fest?
to know.
there was never a Balloon Fest again.
Was there a Balloon Fest 85?
No,
It was just 86.
it was just a one and done thing.
It was like Kid Nation, one and done.
I mean,
How did
I don't
2
know
people
if there
die?
were a smaller version previously, but they were going for a world record for the most number of balloons released at a time. And
How do you die from setting off balloon? Like
I'll get to that. No one,
it's so like
They must have overshot that world record by like a ton, right?
they didn't die the way you would expect. So,
oh, I know, it was a car crash.
no. Okay, okay. I'll tell the story. So they released all these balloons. They were going for a world record. They had Guinness World Record officials there.
Chicago, was it?
Guinness himself.
Cleveland, Ohio, and they released all the balloons a little early because there's a storm front that was coming through. That was like really cold air, and it was pressing. They're like, yeah, a storm front was coming through, and they're like, we gotta release these now. So they released them a little early. They only got to like 1.5 million balloons.
We gotta release this balloon.
And so they released all the balloons. You get the epic shot of them going out into the city, but then the storm comes in with a cold front in front of it, and it basically changed the density of the air so that all the helium just fell to the ground and littered the ocean, littered the skies with balloons everywhere. And there were 2 fishermen that were lost at sea. They had gotten to an accident or something like that out in the sea, and helicopters couldn't fly through the storm of balloons. Like literally, the helicopter couldn't approach, so Coast Guard couldn't go rescue these fishermen who died.
Oh my
Oh my God.
Because they were not able to be
Imagine
rescued.
being a kid being like, this is the happiest thing in the world. There's 1 million balloons that are about to go off. And then nobody bothered to ask the question of like, hey, this probably isn't good.
No, it shut down the entire city for like a couple days.
1 million pieces of rubber, just like, we're just gonna just dump them. And then like no thought given to like, and so for these kids,
Okay,
they're like,
apparently
yay,
they were
Balloon Fest, and
biodegradable
these
balloons.
lost fishermen are like, oh my God, please somebody.
There's balloons all around them.
Helicopters
Where the
like,
hell did these balloons come from?
can't fly in there because its engine's gonna get wrapped in balloons.
Yeah, they're just out there. They're just trapped out there, and then it's like 3 days later, and they're like, dude, I think we're gonna die. It's like, why can't anyone? It's like, why can't they send anybody? It's like, dude, Balloon Fest 86. They set off those balloons, dude. Yeah, it was like apparently this guy wanted to set off the balloons, and they can't come get us.
So yeah, I mean, and that's okay.
Oh, it's terrible.
kinda
I don't
gets
mean to
worse.
laugh, but oh my God.
I know, right? It's sad.
Wait, they said it was biodegradable, but don't
Yeah.
biodegradable materials take like forever to degrade
It
anyways?
depends.
Probably.
I don't know what kind
Probably.
of materials they're using. Biodegradable, you're right. It could take maybe 100 years for it to like decompose. It could take maybe they're like sugar based and it takes like a few days. I don't know.
Dude,
I
in
don't
the
know.
80s, biodegradable could have meant anything.
Yeah, no kidding, right? But yeah, so it shut down the city because suddenly you had balloons landing everywhere. They had to shut down the highways. They shut down the airports.
I want to see like the hectic street where it's like,
So I think I made one mistake. I said no one ever tried something like that again, but apparently at like Disney World in the UK or something like that, several years later they attempted something like that again.
that'd be a good
But like
idea.
whatever, I don't know, whatever. Someone was like, "Oh yeah, you did your research, huh?" And I was like, "Ugh, whatever, fine, doesn't matter."
Dang, dude, people are salty. Why?
Yeah.
Is it on Twitter or is it on YouTube?
I don't know. It's
Yeah, don't
So the
don't
worst
worry
part
about the
about all
salt,
of that-
man. Just know that if
all
there's salt in there, it means that at least people are watching it.
yeah, no, for sure. But like the worst part about all of that, they did not get the world record.
What?
They refused to issue the record.
Why? But
I don't know why.
did they
Maybe because it
technically-
ended up being such a danger to the city that they're like, we can't condone this. We're not giving you the record. Technically,
Wow.
you definitely beat the record, but we're not giving you our.
Oh, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
I'd be like, dude, I
No,
killed
here's the
2
thing.
fishermen.
Here's what actually happened. The event director knew about he knew about the stranded fishermen, but he didn't care. Wait, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh, I thought you were reading up on it.
No.
It looked like you were reading the screen.
Yeah, it looks like you're reading.
But it says
He's
in
like
quotes,
an evil.
he didn't care.
He's like, no, we will get this record. We must get the record.
Fisherman, you are releasing my balloons on my cue only. There's like a guy's like finger on the button like nukes. Oh my god, dude. That's
How did they
hilarious.
release those? Was everybody just like holding a balloon?
No, they're under a giant net. So they had erected this giant net, and that
They
they're
just had 200 people like for 7 days straight.
Well, I mean, they don't.
helium.
They,
They inhaled the helium and then put it in the
inhaled
balloon.
It's like
Had
from
to-
its heat.
yeah,
and then
to
straight
be
the balloon.
legit, it had to go through a human body first. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So yeah, that was the thing. That was a big deal.
Dude, the drama behind that, like, I would love to see the movie. Dude,
Oh my god,
that.
a Netflix drama series
Yes.
about Balloon 86.
Seriously.
It starts and it's got like dark and brooding music, like dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun. And you just see a cloud of balloons approaching the camera.
Oh my god.
Dun, 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 dun.
It's like the silhouetted person with the voice changer.
It's
And,
basically
like, they're like-
Chernobyl, but with balloons.
Yes. They have to take up all the topsoil because it's just
Hey,
covered.
both in
God.
86. That's it.
Oh my god.
That's
But yeah,
hilarious.
so like, we're running out of helium. So every like Macy's Day parade, Macy's Day, Thanksgiving, Macy's
Yeah.
parade, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, we
It's
could
like-
just switch to hydrogen.
Let's just parade a bunch of bombs down the middle of the street.
Down in the middle
Whoa.
of Fifth Avenue. So
Yeah,
what's the deal with that? What happens? What's gonna happen there?
So the problem with helium is that it's lighter than air, so it floats out into space. Like
Yeah.
if
It
like all the
escapes.
helium I just breathed out, like it's in here, it's diffused throughout all the air, but eventually it's gonna make its way outside and then make its way up into the stratosphere and then up into the very top layer of the atmosphere where there's like no other molecules around. It literally escapes to outer space. It's that lightweight.
Can
Wow.
we go up there and like capture it somehow?
I don't think so. I don't think it's because it's not remotely dense enough to
Yeah.
capture up there. So, and I never
Yeah.
knew this for the longest time until like a couple of years ago. I learned that like, oh yeah, we drill for helium. We get it out of the ground. We mine it.
That's
And I was like, what?
insane.
And so then for this video, I was researching how that exactly works, and it's like apparently uranium, because it's like radioactive decay. It's like shooting off ions and whatnot, and those ions end up forming helium. So it's not radioactive. It's just because helium is the second lightest element. It's literally just like I think a proton and like 2 electrons or something like that. Or
So it's just a
a proton,
It's-
a proton, a neutron,
it's
and
number
like
2, right?
2 electrons. Yeah, I
Or
forget.
3, I don't know.
I have to like turn in my chemistry card right now.
No, it's 2 because it's hydrogen and then helium.
Yeah.
So it's like a
No,
proton.
it's number 2. I was saying like the number of neutrons, protons.
Then it
and
would have to have
electrons.
2 protons.
It-
Right?
yeah, it's definitely 2 protons, but
Okay.
I don't know if it. I'm pretty sure it's 2 electrons and then 2 neutrons. Maybe it's 1 neutron.
Wait, so it says uranium. What is uranium in its purest form? Like, what is that? What does that look like? Is it a rock?
Yeah,
It's like
more
a
or less.
green
It's like a
glowing
rocky
rock.
metal. It's just.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. It's a mineral. If you were to look at some uranium, it just look like a rocky mineral type thing, but it's just it's radioactive.
Whoa.
Wow.
And but we're talking like thousands of feet underground, and
That's so
and
crazy.
so it's producing this helium, and that helium seeks through the cracks and whatnot, and then forms with all the natural gas that is already down there and has been forming over the course of millions of years. So anytime.
do the miners just start talking in high pitched voices?
Is that what you're thinking?
we're onto some good shit here.
It's like
We're onto something here, man. I think, yeah, it's real good stuff. We're gonna be rich.
yeah,
I'm gonna be rich.
Oh man.
that to you, please.
No, I mean,
Yeah, the
The
weirdest
depths
thing
at
about
which
thing
helium-
about chemistry is that we don't even like. Why is it radioactive? We can say because it has this compound and this compound, and those 2 things cause radioactivity or whatever. But like beyond
But why?
that,
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
don't
why do those
know
rules exist?
why. Yeah.
That's so crazy to
I
me.
mean, I mean, kind of know why. Like, I mean,
How do you explain it?
Well, I mean, I don't know it well enough to explain it, but like, it definitely is explainable in pretty extreme detail how and why it works. But it kind of seems like the why you're asking is like why do we exist? Like,
No, I'm saying
yeah.
like that's what I'm saying is like chemistry has some of that inherent to it. Like when you can take one, compound and combine it with another, and then this will happen or that'll happen, and we can explain what's likely to happen, or we can explain what we know to happen.
Yeah.
But if you're going to combine like hydrogen and helium or whatever, like the result of why those things, you could say, yeah, because it's missing a proton and the protons are or because it's missing an electron and and they're looking for, then it's unstable. But why is it unstable? Well, because it's not balanced. Well, why is it not balanced?
Cloud and...
Like that, those are like, we don't know those.
No,
the
we
answers
do
to
know
that.
those. All of those answers
No,
are
but
pretty well documented.
I think what Jake is trying to say, but like what constitutes the rules of the universe? Like we don't know why these rules are in place.
Yeah.
That's
Which
what I'm
is
saying.
Sure, but that's why I said like that's more of an existential question.
That's
Yeah.
a very interesting question, though.
Yeah, it is.
It's like
I was just trying to blow Clint's mind, man.
Yeah, and it's
nuts.
crazy because it's like every now and then I start realizing how the universe works, and it's like all of these crazy elements that we have were born in a supernova. We are literally stardust, like
Yeah.
the famous Neil deGrasse Tyson line where he's like, "You and I are made of stardust." Cool, dude. But like, it's true though. It's like, at the beginning of the universe, there's a ton of hydrogen. It was basically just a whole bunch of hydrogen that all collapsed into stars. And when those stars exploded, the pressure from an exploding star is so great at its core that it fuses those elements into heavier elements. So like iron, gold, all of the elements we know of were literally, it's like you had like these two lighter elements of like, say, I don't know, what's a carbon, some sort of lighter element. They're just a couple carbon elements hanging out, and then like an explosion happens around you, and those things are pushed together so hard they form iron,
Wow.
and then are just blasted into space. Just like imagine like the most highest resolution dust simulation possible. It's just a ton of dust covering light years, and then slowly over the course of like 1 billion years, it compresses back down, and then like forms back up. But all of the heavier stuff doesn't move as fast, so it kind of stays out. Because it's got inertia, right? It's harder to move. And all the hydrogen collapses back down to the center, forms a new star. All of the heavier elements, they stay out in space, but eventually they start forming up into planets.
Wow.
And so that's how you get like the planets, the rocky iron, all the other elements, they just start grouping together because they've got, gravity, they eventually meet up. And and that's how we get all of everything.
That's so wild.
And it's crazy because it's like, the sun accounts for 99% of all of the mass in the solar system, and like
What?
Jupiter accounts for like 0.9% of all of the
What?
mass.
In our
Or
sol-
no,
in our solar-
0.09% of all the mass. It's
in
like,
our solar system.
in our solar system, yeah, it's like the sun is like 99.9% of all the
Wow.
mass.
Goodness.
It's like,
And it's like when you think of it that
there's
way,
a
it's like
lot of
imagine,
space out there.
yeah. Well, I mean, like, but like think of it this way: it's like you spilled a bunch of dust on the ground, right? And it's like you're wiping it all up, and you get those last little bits that you can't get into the dustpan, and you pull it back a little bit, dust more, pull back a little bit, dust more, and eventually you're like, all right, I got enough of it. I got 99.9% of all the dust that I just spilled, and you pour that into the trash. Well, the trash is now your sun, and all the other particles that you didn't quite get forms primarily Jupiter, followed by Saturn. And then like a few microscopic specks that you didn't get, that forms Earth.
That's
Jeez.
crazy. That's a good analogy.
Wild. I mean, that's what NASA wants you to believe.
It's a conspiracy, man. They'll have
But,
us
like,
believe
That's
that.
hilarious.
Yeah, if you just think about it in the terms of just like it's just a bunch of dust that explodes out, and then the inertia of that dust is different between different elements, and then that just happens over and over again. That's how you get all these different stars, and then eventually it gets to a big enough scale that galaxies form because you get all these little tiny things that are all clumping together because of gravity. And also like dark matter and dark energy, which I don't know much about, but that's a huge factor.
Dude, don't talk to me about dark matter, dude.
But
What
yeah,
a
no,
name.
it's like it's crazy. But yeah, so hydrogen. There's a lot of hydrogen in the universe. There's a lot of helium in the universe. There's tons of helium out there. It's just there's not much of it on Earth.
Where does it go when it's in the vacuum of space?
It just probably chills at the top layer of our atmosphere. It's like it's light enough that it reaches the top of the atmosphere, but it's not weightless. It doesn't escape out into space.
Oh, so
It's
our
just sitting up there.
gravity keeps it,
It's in
Yeah.
orbit. It's probably
but
in
it
orbit.
just sits up there.
I wouldn't say it's in orbit. It's literally just like directly above us, like 100 miles.
I wonder, could you sift it in the future? Could you sift it? And
Big
like,
Potentially.
net
Yeah,
out of
I-
the
Maybe
spaceship.
if we
I
had
mean-
like nanobots or something.
yeah.
In theory, you could, but it's like we're talking like at densities that are so low, it's not worth doing. You're better off going to Jupiter and sifting it out from there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. No, dude, it's great. So, okay, going back to visual effects.
Wait,
On
how,
the
we
go.
doing?
Quite a
How-
tangent.
How are we doing right now?
We're good. I wanted
We're good.
Peter. I wanted you to talk about maybe a shot or two that you did.
Exactly. No, I'm bringing that up.
Sure,
I'm bringing
yeah.
that up right now. So,
Yeah.
going into this video, I specifically wanted to not use a green screen for this video.
Oh no.
Why?
The opening shot,
Why?
I walk out of my living room door because, rotoscoping isn't that bad. We can do it. And this whole new machine learning runway ML thing where you just click a person, suddenly they're rotoscoped in 2.5 minutes. I was like, oh, cool. I want to see how feasible this is for an actual production.
Yeah.
So on a Sunday, I set up a camera on my porch and I filmed all of my porch bits sitting on my chair with the idea that I will cut out the porch and my body and we'll replace it with a drone shot, as if I'm up in the air. It seemed like a great idea. So I was like, okay,
You didn't use a green
Peter.
screen for that, son?
no.
I'm glad it wasn't noticeable.
Yeah.
No, one person commented. I forget if it was a YouTube comment or an Instagram message, but he was like, you should really despill your footage, dude. I can see the green screen peeking through around your edges.
That's
It's like, you
hilarious.
should
Get
despill it
outta
and use like
here.
light wrap and stuff on it. Like your green screen key would have looked better. I'm like,
Well, they
If
probably
only
saw the
you knew.
grass. They probably saw the grass.
Right,
maybe.
right.
no,
You
I don't
know.
think they saw the grass. I think they were seeing artifacts through the hair because there are a couple moments where you can see my hair. So
Yeah.
I threw Peter under the bus here. By under the bus, I mean I just like, hey Peter, I'm giving you a week's worth of rotoscoping.
Yeah, I mean,
Have fun.
honestly, it wasn't that bad. I just think you overestimated the potential of Runway ML and Rotobrush too.
But that was what we learned. So tell me about your experience
yeah.
here.
So
How well does Runway ML work?
Runway ML
The
works.
green screen model specifically.
Yeah, works fantastic for people. But the problem is it's only 1080p, and so when you bring in your rotoscope, like your cutout image, into After Effects to use to separate your background from your foreground, you have those jagged edges, and when you go to smooth out those edges, you lose detail in the corners. So all of the little, like the corner right here and in between your hands and fingers and stuff, you get the little white background in between there. So
Yeah.
it's not as high resolution. And also it really only works great for people. For like objects, I don't know, like Nico hasn't had trouble with this, but I would try and like select a chair and it'd be like, nah. And then I would try and select it again and it'd be like, all right, and it would do it. And then track 3 frames, perfect. And then it'd be like, nah, I don't want to track the chair. I'm
'Cause
done.
that's the biggest downside with that program I can see right now is that like it's so early on in the time scale of like these sort of things is that like
Yeah.
the way it works is by training. Like a deep fake, you train it on someone, on 2 people, and it just basically looks at thousands of images and tries to make that image over and over and over again until it starts getting pretty decent.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing with the green screen effect. Basically, you give it an image, and then you also give it a rotoscoped image, and it compares the two and learns where those rotoscoped lines are going. And you just do that enough times that it's starting to figure out, okay, I think I know how this works. But I guarantee you, they trained primarily on people.
Yeah, which makes sense because that's primarily most of the time if you're rotoscoping out people.
Exactly.
And it works great. And what it works perfect for is when we did that Runway ML video with Clint doing the
flip,
crazy
yeah.
dancing and the explosion behind him. It works perfect for things like that where something's like moving erratically and you have to put something behind them for like a second. It's perfect.
Yeah.
But if you're just like sitting on a porch talking at a camera for a minute straight, it starts to fall apart a little bit.
Well, you were actually talking about the idea that you can rough roto something if it's moving quickly. Like you literally just said this, but
Yeah.
I think it's something very important
No, totally.
because I know exactly what you mean. You can roto someone roughly if they're moving quickly because your eyes don't have time to focus on the inconsistencies and the errors.
Yeah, totally.
because it might be an error here, but like you didn't see it because it's moving so fast.
It's just there for a split second.
Yeah, but when it's just me sitting here and I'm like explaining this, like you're gonna see like the warbly edges and the you know?
It gives your eyes more time to be like, wait, what's going on there?
Yeah,
Especially when it's sitting above like hundreds of feet above the ground and you're like, oh my God. Especially as I'm leaning back in my chair giving everyone freaking anxious.
Those shots, when
Panic
you
attacks.
like tripped back, when I watched the original footage, I was like, what is Wren doing in this shot? And then I put the drone footage in and I was like, oh, that's cool.
yep.
You did that
Yeah.
on purpose, right?
Kind of.
Did you
So I
not?
set myself up in a situation where it could happen,
Oh,
but I
okay.
didn't know when it would happen.
Clever.
It took several takes for it to finally happen. I'll put it that way.
So Runway ML, you should tell Nico what you guys discovered there.
Oh, yeah.
because
Yeah.
Okay, because
Yes.
they'd like us to. We've been talking with them a little bit, and they'd like us to
Give some feedback? For sure.
help them suss out problems like that.
Totally.
Absolutely. I mean,
I don't mean to talk shit about Runway ML. It's a great piece of software, and it's extremely helpful just for that particular project. We ended up using
so
more
Runway
Rotobrush.
ML is a platform, and the model we
Right,
use
right,
is
right.
what we're talking about.
They're-
to
No,
be
that's
clear.
They're
It's like,
they'd
we're
be-
talking about
they'd
a
be
tiny
happy
piece
to hear
within
us
this.
tell them
But it
that
is
because
their
that's a
model.
prime example.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
of
for
what
sure.
they're
And
looking
I'm
to
sure we'll
solve.
talk about it because that was part of the reason why I wanted to do this project this way is to learn on an actual project how feasible it is by just doing the project.
That was a good call.
And,
yeah.
And so what you ended up having to do was combining that, or did you do entirely Rotobrush too?
Yeah, so what ended up happening was I tried doing Runway ML for your whole body, and it worked decently for getting your arms and your legs and stuff, but then the head, it smoothed over your hair, and you got little corners on your ears and things like that.
Yeah.
And since the face and the eyes is the first thing you look at and the thing you look at the most in a shot, it was the most noticeable there. So for the head, I would do that with Rotobrush, where I could select the head, get the ears all nice and crispy, and then you use the Refine Edge tool on the hair, and you actually get that transparent hair, like the individual strands, which I don't know how the heck it works. It's amazing.
It's kind of magic.
It's
like
amazing.
The whole video was like, oh, this Runway ML thing is pretty sweet and all, but like the Refine Edge tool in Rotobrush 2 is actually pretty dang great.
Yeah.
It's I remember when it first came out back in like 2013. Rotobrush was already a thing at that time, but then the Refine Edge came out, and I used it a whole bunch on like clothes and like things, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
It's like-
it is magic. I don't know how it works.
But then it's like you start learning the limitations of it, and you're like, I hate it.
Sometimes it's just dumb.
Yeah, sometimes it's Rotobrush. Any of these sort of that's the problem with AI tools is that like you don't have that much control, like fine detail control over them. It's great whenever it works,
Yeah.
and if you give it something that is good at doing, it's going to do it very well. But you give it something it can't really do very well, it's going to struggle. For instance, the chair I was sitting on.
Yeah. If you like toss it underhand, a softball, it'll hit it every single time. But the moment you throw a fastball, it's like,
But again, this comes down to simply time training. This is the beginning of this model. This model is going to continue to train on a bunch of variety of objects. Like
Yeah.
if they threw more
Yeah.
like keyed out chairs, it'd be like, oh, this is what a chair looks like. Oh, this is what a car looks like. Like all these different things, and over time, the library of knowledge that this model has grows.
Totally.
So
Right.
I would not be surprised if in a year it's pretty dang robust.
yeah, it's not like their software is inherently flawed or anything. It just
It's
needs
just
more
young.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Machine
Totally.
learning is so wild like that. Like how you can just take in additional information and then give it back to the model to improve itself, and then
Yeah.
have it go out again and dig again and
It's wild.
And that's
repeat that
that
process.
is the cool thing about Runway ML is that it is a machine learning platform. You can design your own models and put it up on the
What?
platform for other people to use and train.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah,
That is cool.
But the green screen effect that they use is an in-house produced model. They made it themselves, and I've already seen 2 other videos that talk about it. Action VFX did a video about it, and Film Riot did a video about it. Great videos. But like the Action VFX guy, Luke, he did 3 roto shots in 10 minutes.
Jeez.
And they weren't like simple rotos. He was like coming out of the water, running to shore. One, he's like quickly running through a hallway, like bouncing off the walls. And it's like a few clicks, done. And it's like
Yeah.
pretty great. But like you're saying, if I'm just sitting here for 5 minutes on a chair, yeah,
Those straight lines, doesn't like the straight lines.
Rotobrush
Neither of
doesn't
them.
like straight lines either. And it's just like, ugh. But
Yeah, so I
Also,
ended up
the
using,
moment when I fall off my chair or almost fall out of the chair and I lean forward, the chair I'm sitting on has a mesh bit behind my back. And if you look at that mesh, you can clearly see my garden.
Yeah.
But it's a nice combination of brown and green and red that it kind of just looks like the drone footage.
Yeah, the color grade you threw on helped a lot to match the two. But yeah, it honestly wasn't too bad. Got to listen to a lot of podcasts, but yeah.
But that being
We gotta
said,
get you a
you
green
also
screen.
kicked out some really, really cool carbon fiber.
Thanks.
Dude,
No,
balloons.
just shout out to freaking polygon.com for that texture.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. The only place like I was like, oh man, what place has a carbon fiber
Yeah,
texture? And like
Megascans doesn't.
Megascans doesn't. Like freaking I don't.
Textures.com or some shit.
No, you're like Texture Haven.
Megascans.
I think that was one
skins.
of because Andrew told me that
skins.
like most of their textures they do these days and have been for a while,
Substance.
they're all substance designed.
Right.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
all made from scratch because it's like, all right, he can pay someone to go photo scan a material, and that takes X amount of time, X amount of dollars, and it's not that much, but all of that leads to one material. Or he can pay someone a little bit more to put in all this effort to make this one material that now with just a couple like changes of seeds and inputs,
Yeah.
you can get a completely different material. And so
Crazy.
with that basically the same amount of work, you can produce 30 materials or 30 million materials. It's like there's not really an upper limit for, yeah, that's why substance designer is so incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to learn Substance Designer. I've been doing Substance Painter for a while, but that's more just like individual objects as opposed to creating a
Dude.
material.
Substance designer is so much fun.
Really?
It is.
Oh, man.
I dived in for like 2 weeks and I was like, this is awesome. This is the best, man. Like I
Wow.
could just be in here all day.
That's cool. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, no, it's cool stuff. But yeah, I think they probably produced that carbon fiber material, but there's
Oh,
only
yeah,
one
definitely.
carbon fiber material.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
That's all you
I don't
need.
know,
So
man.
was it substance? Andrew, leave a comment down below.
What was I gonna say? No, Jake was about to say something, but
But I mean, yeah. So it's like the whole thing about the carbon fiber thing is that I feel like carbon fiber as a visual is a very recognizable material.
Mhm.
Everyone's familiar with that cross weave, shiny blackness.
Yeah.
That is totally not indestructible.
Absolutely 100%
Uh-huh.
will and is and always has been indestructible.
Thank you,
Got it.
Jake. Yes.
Got it.
Because again, like this whole segment is like a thought experiment about like, all right, if you could have a material that's mega strong and literally doesn't weigh anything, like what would that look like? Chances are it'd probably just be like jet black. Like it wouldn't look like anything, and it's like, well, that's boring. So yeah, I mean, like, and especially the scale of the carbon fiber totally doesn't match between all the shots.
Oh no, the ratio is whack.
I didn't notice though. I had no idea.
Great.
But
I
no,
didn't
like it was
notice,
intentional on
yeah.
my part. I was like, make it big enough that you can clearly see, because technically, like the smaller balloon that you see is like, if you were to stick with that scale of carbon fiber texture, but blow that up to the size of the one that's holding the house, it would just be like this fine moire type pattern.
Yeah,
because
it
it'd be
would
so
just be gray.
small. And same thing if you go backwards. If you were to use the scale of the big balloon down on the small balloon, either the one that freaking David Blaine was hanging from or the freaking collapsible one, you would have like one giant strip going around the whole balloon and one giant strip going the other way, and it's like, it looks like garbage too.
But that's a good like creative note there, as you chose to go for what looks cool versus
Yeah.
it being realistic.
Yeah, it's like not necessarily what looks cool as much as just what looks recognizable. I wanted
Sure,
it to be
yeah.
instantly like, oh, that's a carbon fiber balloon. People associate carbon fiber with being lightweight.
There's
Yeah.
also a material that caught light really nicely. Like it caught the sunlight wrapping
Yeah.
around and
looks so
the
good.
It
sun
did look
hitting
very
all
good.
those little
You also did the
ridges
whole
and
thing where you
stuff.
projected the footage onto a plane, so they
Oh,
actually had
yeah.
proper reflections.
Dude, in the shadow displacement, that was
the
a
shadow
new thing I
displacement,
figured
man,
out.
so good.
If
I tried
you-
that on the Statue of Liberty shot, but it just wasn't working.
Dang.
And
Yeah.
What showed us?
So you render out your beauty pass, which is like the main CGI element, and then
Yeah.
you render out your shadow pass, and you throw, one on top of the other. And for your shadow in After Effects, if you place a displacement map effect on it, and then set the displacement image to like your main footage, it'll use the brightness values in your background footage to like push the pixels of the shadow in like little different directions. So it looks like if there's grass in your shot or something, it looks like some of the grass is like peeking up above the shadow and kind of distorting it a little bit.
Oh,
It gives it a really
dude.
nice like depth
Yeah, like when it
effect.
goes over the waves and then on the ground, you can actually, it kind of looks like it's going up and over the wave or over the, so it actually gives the shadow depth as opposed
Yeah.
to just a perfectly flat plane.
That's a
which is
pro
how
tip.
we always render out our shadows on a perfectly flat surface.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it is like a mostly flat surface, it's never perfectly flat.
Dude, that's
Yeah.
a level 9 tip, dude.
But
It's
it
one
worked
of,
well
but it's
for
one of
that
those
shot.
dumb tips where it's like so simple, but it helps so much.
It's great.
It worked
Yeah.
well for that shot because the object wasn't contacting the shadow though. Because I tried doing that on the Statue of Liberty shot where it
Mm-hmm. Right.
starts out really close up on the house and then pulls away to reveal the Statue of Liberty in Hindenburg. But those shadows are in contact with those objects. And so the moment I tried that, it was pulling away from the actual house itself. So I was having some separation issues. I had a lot of trouble
Little
trying to get the
separation
shadows working on that. Although I was telling Clint about this morning. I did manage to get some grass growing in front of the bottom of the house. Go back and look at that. It's like if you're to freeze frame on the opening shot, I'm really happy with that render because the house actually looks like it's sitting there in a yard because you got pieces of grass going up through the steps going down into the grass in front of it.
Yeah.
And I did that by basically rendering out a shadow mat of a plane with hair growing on it.
Whoa.
So I just simulated a whole bunch of hair sprouting out of this ground plane, and I just put that underneath the house, and the hair intersects with the house,
Yeah.
and everything in front of the house, it blocks it. So I rendered that out as a shadow catcher material that I just used as in After Effects to cut away, like cookie cut out the house render.
So it sounds to
That's
me
awesome.
like both of you guys did the same thing, but through a different way.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, I didn't really do much for the shadow going out over that was more for the render rather than the shadow. But it's all a way to try to just take something that you rendered in a flawless environment and try to like
Rough it up a
rough
little
it
bit.
up in a realistic way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about roughing your
Because
stuff
it
up.
Yeah.
comes out all sterile and clean, and then you have to like throw grain on it and make it look like it
Dude.
was shot on your
That's
camera.
why Iron Man 1 looked so good compared to all the other Iron Man movies. It was all freaking gritty and scratched up.
That's
and
My main
burned.
complaint with Iron Man is that, like, you know, back in the early ones, he still had like a metal suit, whereas in the later ones, he got like this freaking nanoparticle suit.
Yeah.
And they changed the texture to be more of like a matte reflective type thing. Very kind of like a rough edge as opposed to like a sharp reflection.
Yeah.
And it just kind of made it look more unrealistic to me.
Okay.
I agree.
Whereas like, you know, Iron Man 1, even Iron Man 2 visuals
Yeah,
were really good.
sure.
Iron Man 3 visuals were very good. And it's like, they got a little out of hand, but they still like, a lot of those shots were like, I don't know. I also wasn't the biggest fan of the beige style. It was like,
Yeah.
but those CG suits looked very good.
That's true. That's true.
Anyway, yeah, so a lot of effects came together in this video. I was realizing this video had a tremendous number of visual effects because we had the three of you guys, you two and Sam. I contributed one shot. This is the fewest number of VFX shots I've ever done on one of my videos. If you don't include all like the other random effects that I do inside of Premiere, like with the text and whatnot. But I reused a lot of old effects. I reused the shot that you did for the World of Warships video talking about buoyancy.
Yep.
I included our freaking what was the video? The Metal Gear Solid video, the balloon ride.
That
And
was
those were a
great.
bunch of VFX shots that we had done.
I'm so glad we got to reuse those,
Yeah,
especially since you're the character.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That was me
Perfect,
dangling
man.
from the
It's
balloon.
perfect.
Yeah.
And no one knows. I even included a shot of me, but you just can't tell that it's me because I've got a mask.
It was a great video, man.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
I know,
Yeah.
I'm
It
proud of you
was.
guys. You guys
It was,
killed it.
and everyone really, I think, like, had a chance to show off some strengths. And you know, if you guys want to hear first on the Corridor Cast the tips and tricks, how to make it nitty gritty, how to make it lifelike, you know, all that good stuff. Just come on down, subscribe to the Corridor Cast because we got plenty more of this on the way.
Yeah,
Oh,
come
yeah.
visit the studio. Stop by.
Come hang. Hey, but for real though, no. If you come
You
by,
can't say that. You can't say that out loud.
Yeah,
man.
don't
you
say
come by
that,
the studio-
Peter. Gosh dang it.
here's the thing. No, here's the thing. Here's the
Still
thing.
get people dropping by the studio.
We do not appreciate randos coming by the studio. Like, there's other ways to do it. However,
Not randos, fans.
if you, apologies. If you're coming down to the studio while we're working, okay, like we're busy, okay,
Son,
And if
son,
you, if you,
don't
if you
even
come
need
down
to
to the
answer
studio,
this, son.
no, you're gonna cut this out. I know it, but like,
We're not.
You're gonna- if
we
you're
don't
gonna come
cut
down-
anything anymore.
if you're gonna come down to the studio and be like, oh, let's get a tour while everyone's working very hard. Bring something for us. Bring something for us. No. Bring us food. Bring us something. Bring us gifts.
Bring me bitcoins.
Bring us gifts, dude.
I thought you didn't
Here, I'll
want
give you
people
a
to
tour
come
of the
by.
studio if you give me a single
Please
bitcoin.
don't come down to the studio on a Tuesday afternoon. We'll be working and making a video. But if you want to listen to the podcast or leave a comment on Wren's video, we'll be there. We'll be there. We'll be there.
I like this trend of talking about videos that we just put out, though. I think we should keep doing it, so definitely subscribe. And I'll see you guys in another video.
Hey, hit some helium. A helium solo.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Helium
Ready?
solo.
Some helium for a million views.
You need the full exhale. You need the full exhale.
Thanks for watching the Corridor Cast. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
We had
Wait,
a
oh,
blast.
this is what you gotta do. You gotta try to talk really deeply.
Full exhale. Full exhale.
This is me trying to talk as deep as I can.
I am. But if I start trying to talk like this, it just sounds different.
It's
Wait,
way
what
worse
happens
than
if
this
you
one.
Yeah.
inhale helium and then yell?
And yell. I'm gonna try to yell. That's a good
Wait,
idea.
wait,
Let me get a
all
little
right,
bit of
I'm
air
gonna,
That's
first.
normal
assume, I'm
now.
gonna assume that we faded out at this point.
Yeah, exhale completely. Exhale completely and full.
That's what I did. That's why I almost passed out.
Do it again, dude.
No, I'm not doing that again.
I'm cutting, son. I'm cutting.